Every disease known to man has a gene and subsequent pathway attached and assigned to them. According to the World Health Organization, there's approximately 30,000 known diseases worldwide. There's also roughly about 20,000 genes in the body. So what if you knew exactly which genes and pathways were involved with your health condition and could find out exactly which compounds in nature targeted those exact genes and pathways in order to reverse engineer that dis-ease process? Altering genes to help reverse or prevent disease, specifically targeting pathways and protein-to-protein interactions, potentially can open the doors to new powerful therapeutic applications. It is now possible to recognize the interaction of specific nutraceuticals with a genetic code possessed by all known cells. The modulation and manipulation of gene expression can be achieved by a variety of natural compounds in combination, allowing for a certain synergy in which the body can naturally heal itself. Your genes don't have to be your fate. Nature has provided every plant-bearing seed for our body's healing. So no matter what the issue, there's always going to be something found in nature to reverse it. In fact, anything that's done may be undone in the same manner in which it was done in the first place. Very specific compounds in nature target very specific genetic expressions. We can build a suggested custom protocol to target any health-related issue. Let us show you how. For those of you who are able to make it, Miss Jackie, I appreciate you. We're going to help you today. And Jackie went ahead and already typed in her issue in the chat here on the Zoom. If you did not get access to the Zoom, the way to do it is to subscribe to my email list on dnadiligence.com, and I send out a link weekly for the live Zoom where we do live biohacking through DNA Diligence. And so without further ado, Jackie has requested that we go ahead and target high blood pressure, which is also known as hypertension. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to type in hypertension. First of all, a little background on me. I used to utilize a technology that would analyze a person's voice, and then it would spit out a report that would then tell me exactly which genes and pathways and protein-to-protein interactions and vitamins and minerals and enzymes and you name it. It would tell me what was going on with the individual. The only problem was you needed a PhD to be able to interpret the data, which is why I went on a long journey. So when I tell you I have about 50,000 research hours under my belt, it's true, because I would go down every single rabbit hole that you could possibly think of. And one day I stumbled across these databases. One of them is called the Human Disease Database, otherwise known as the Malacards, where they put all of the maladies in one spot in a humongous database, consolidated from 75 sources. So the CDC says, and the World Health Organization say there's about 30,000 genes. They got about 22,000 entries in this database, which is plenty enough to keep me busy. Okay. The next thing we do is look at gene cards. Okay. There's roughly 20,000 or more genes codified. And if there is a disease that has been codified in a medical database, then it will be in the Malacards, and it will have a very specific gene attached and assigned to it. In other words, what is the number one disease, or what is the number one gene associated with that disease? And you're able to find that information. So if you're coming in, please mute yourself so that we don't get interrupted. Okay, so what I'm about to show you can allow you to take your health into your own hands. In other words, not be reliant on the mainstream medical system. We know that that system is broken, has been for a very long time. And in fact, it was basically made that way on purpose to keep people from obtaining full health through the use of pharmaceuticals. You go look up what the word pharmaceutical means. Basically, pharmakia, witchcraft, sorcery. It's basically what that means. Okay. Excuse me. So, a little housekeeping before I get into the hypertension here. This is intended for education and research, and none of this has been evaluated by the FDA. This product and service is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure, prevent any disease. The information provided on the site is strictly for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional or any other contained on or in any product label or packaging. In other words, this is strictly what I would do if I were you scenario. And this is not medical advice. This is for research and education purposes only. Okay, so where do we start? So if I were to get a client, the very first place I would start is asking them, what is your number one health issue? Okay, and based on that information, I would try to find that number one health issue, i.e. medical term, i.e. previous diagnosis, in the Malacards, okay? So in this case, we're gonna look at hypertension, like spelled that right, hypertension, high blood pressure. Okay, so here we see the score next to it, hypertension is what we're gonna look at. Before I get started here, let me check the chat, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, perfect. So I'm not gonna monitor the chat, so we're just gonna go with hypertension until I'm done with it, and then maybe we'll move on if I have time for something else, okay? So high blood pressure, otherwise known as hypertension essential, according to the authorities on the matter. So right here is going to tell me what high blood pressure is, hypertension. Okay, what is high blood pressure, or what is blood pressure? Blood pressure is the force of your blood pushing against the walls of your arteries. Each time your heart beats, it pumps blood into the arteries. Your blood pressure is highest when your heart beats, pumping the blood. This is called systolic pressure. When your heart is at rest, between beats, your blood pressure falls. This is called diastolic pressure. Okay, so I'm not going to read all this, but basically, high blood pressure can lead to other serious life-threatening issues, atherosclerosis, heart attacks, irregular heartbeats, stroke, kidney failure, all kinds of stuff can occur with high blood pressure. And so with that being said, this paragraph right here is the one I really try to focus on right here, because it's going to tell me an important gene associated with hypertension is this gene right here, PTGIS, prostaglandin 12 synthase is what it's called. So I'm going to click on that hyperlink and it's going to take me right over to the actual gene right over this way. So then with that being said, there's a description of what that gene is, and it is a cytochrome P54 superfamily enzyme, okay, that catalyzes many reactions involved with drug metabolism and synthesis of cholesterol, steroids, and other lipids. Okay, so then it kind of goes on. This endoplasmic reticulum membrane protein catalyzes the conversion of prostaglandin H2 to prostacyclin, a potent vasodilator and inhibitor of platelet aggregation. And it goes on, it says an imbalance of prostacyclin and its physiological antagonist, thromboxane A2, contribute to the development of myocardial infarction, stroke, and atherosclerosis. Okay, so that's telling me what the gene is doing. Okay, so there's a few key things I could probably hone in on. Right here, it catalyzes the conversion, right here, of prostaglandin H2. I could probably pull that up. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of this gene, I want to go back here and I want to jump to the section drugs and therapeutics. Okay, drugs and therapeutics for hypertension, and there's 904 listed. So a lot of these are going to be drugs, a lot of them aren't. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and scroll through here. Before I do that, though, let me see here. I'm going to actually create a new document here and basically take notes as we go, which is something I did last week, except I wrote them down. This week, I'm going to put them in a file, in a document. Okay, so again, what I'm doing is looking for natural compounds. So right here would be like considered vitamin E, for example. So I can write vitamin E to start. Okay, there we go. And again, a lot of these are drugs, which may or may not be beneficial in a life-threatening situation. But for the most part, we know that most pharmaceutical drugs in the market are derived. In fact, like 70, 80% of most pharmaceutical drugs in the market are derived from a natural compound anyway. So it's always safer to go with the natural compound. So right here we see, there's one right here, English walnut. So I might just come over here and copy paste English walnut. We see zinc right here. So I'll come back over this way, right, zinc. And then right here, even though that is technically a drug, well, it's what's called a glycosaminoglycogen chain. And I'm not going to get too far into that, but just know that heparin can be substituted in a natural way by the same mechanism of action that makes it so beneficial through a compound called nattokinase. Okay, and just to show you real quick here, heparin plus natto, you'll see a study. I refer to this often because it tells you why nattokinase works so well is because it's considered to be a heparin binding protein. All right, or it has heparin binding protein qualities to it. So what is heparin doing for high blood pressure or hypertension? You come back this way, just cross-reference that information. Says it should be used with severe caution, okay? However, if I went back this way and typed in nattokinase and hypertension, says it reduces blood pressure. Okay, so nattokinase would be probably one of the go-tos in this situation, in my opinion. Okay, and there's 131,000 results on what nattokinase can do for the blood. Okay, all kinds of studies that you can just cross-reference with that type of information. Okay, so let's get back over to the drugs and compounds and therapeutics. Right here, this is basically where they get aspirin from. Right here. Acetylsalicylic acid, okay? It's aspirin. So if you went to a doctor's office, they would probably tell you to take aspirin for high blood pressure. Okay, so where do they get aspirin, or where do they get this compound? It's from white willow. Okay, white willow. The bark of willow contains the same exact compound. So then I can take that information, white willow, and plug it right back over here, and it's going to help reduce inflammation. Okay, so then white willow, what is white willow doing for hypertension? If we wanted to cross-reference that type of information, will we find anything? There's 3,650,000 results. So known to reduce blood pressure. Okay, there's a study Healthline right here is a great resource. I go to this link a lot to read about various things. The white willow. Okay, so we know that's going to help reduce blood pressure. Okay, so then I can come back this way. And there's another one, tannic acid. And you're probably going to ask me what tannic acid is and where can I find tannic acid? Well, I would come back over this way and say highest source, or actually, I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to cross-reference it because I already know with pomegranate. So pomegranate contains tannins, otherwise known as tannic acid. It also has a compound called ellagic acid in it as well. So we know pomegranate is going to be absolutely fantastic. Let me scroll back up here. Copy that. I'm going to put that right over here. Parentheses, pomegranate. So then I could say, what is pomegranate? What is pomegranate doing? Let's say hypertension. For hypertension. And I have 1,320,000 results. Pomegranates are believed to reduce blood pressure through reducing levels of angiotensin converting enzyme. So it helps with the ACE receptor, ACE2 receptor, and controlling blood pressure through controlling the size of the blood vessels in the body. Okay, so that's out of the University of Oxford. But again, there's 1,320,000 results. So far, what's looking really good to me is nattokinase and pomegranate, like are absolutely probably your go-to must-have so far for that information. So adenosine is also listed. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm making my list and checking it twice. So where can we get adenosine? Well, that's cordyceps mushroom. It's naturally occurring right here, okay? So cordyceps mushroom has adenosine in it. And then we would say adenosine is cordyceps. So now let's come back over here and say, what is cordyceps doing for hypertension? Reducing systematic blood pressure. There's 103,000 results, but what it's doing, cordyceps militaris inhibited angioconverting enzyme. So it's also hitting the ACE gene. Okay, so that would be a fantastic thing to also put into a protocol. Okay, because it's targeting the ACE receptor here. So then we have N-acetylcysteine. That's a natural compound you could buy. Let's just throw an N in front of that since most everybody knows that as NAC. NAC. So what is N-acetylcysteine doing for hypertension? Studies in hypertension humans and animal models of hypertension have shown that N-acetylcysteine, a stable cysteine analog, lowers blood pressure. Okay, 426,000 results. I'm sure I could find out a lot more, again, if I dug a little deeper. But just at face value, it appears that it is also a blood pressuring, lowering agent. If I could speak to that, that would be fantastic. So we've got ourselves a nice little list here so far. And this is just looking at the malacarts, the therapeutics on the malacarts. This is basic. Anyone can do this. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I believe that if you can teach a person to fish, they can feed themselves for a lifetime. Now, obviously, if I took you on as my client, I'm going to go way deeper down the rabbit holes. I'll be looking at path cards and all kinds of stuff in these databases that can give you some much needed answers, like in depth. much needed answer. So that's vitamin C right there, ascorbic acid. So instead of ascorbic acid, we'll just put vitamin C right there, okay? Again, that's vitamin E. We have kava right here. That's kava, usually associated with sleep. I wonder why they have it listed. Obviously, if you lower your blood pressure before you go to sleep, less pressure during the task. So I'd have to look into that a little bit more, but it does have 1,103,000 results associated with it. I'd have to look at some additional things. Aids in sleep, here's Healthline. Let's just click on that real quick and just do a keyword search for blood pressure. So lack of sleep. So there's the association. Lack of sleep is associated with hypertension. Okay, so this helps you sleep, thereby helping to regulate your sleep-wake cycles, thereby helping regulate your heartbeat. So then we have taurine right here. That is an amino acid. So I'll come over and list this as well. And so what is taurine doing with hypertension? This is how you double, triple check your work. Taurine treatment remarkably improves blood pressure and vascular function, especially in pre-hypertensive individuals with high normal blood pressure. So there you have it. And there are 1,190,000 results for that. So that's pretty fantastic. Okay, so then we have lecithin. There's two forms of lecithin that you can go to. There's the soy lecithin, which can be fantastic if you know the source of the soy, and it's not like GMO, genetically modified soy, which most of it is today on the market. I do prefer the sunflower lecithin, okay, but this one's talking about soy. There's nothing wrong with soy. It's got such a bad rap because of what it does to estrogen signaling. But there are compounds like genistein, for example, that have soy isoflavonoid compounds in them that hit the estrogen signaling. The key to being able to take a supplement that has soy in it is to be able to counter the estrogen signaling. And the primary way to do that is there's a few ways you can do it. Broccoli, sprouts, any cruciferous vegetables, that sort of thing. Or one of my favorites is Prunella vulgaris, has anti-estrogen signaling. And so the idea is that when you combine certain compounds together and get that synergy, that it's basically self-regulating, you know? And so you can take compounds like soy and feel good about it if you're pairing it with anti-estrogen type of compounds simultaneously. Because if there was any kind of negative effect of you taking soy, it'll be mitigated by that. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. But right here it says lecithin that comes from soy can improve cardiovascular health, especially if you're already at risk for developing high blood pressure and heart disease. Okay, so there are natural sources you can get this from also as well, eggs being one of them. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and put lecithin right down here as well. And lecithin is also a good source of phosphatidylcholine. It provides the membrane of the cell with the nutrients that it needs as well. So then we have some more amino acids down here. I'm not going to go through all the amino acids. I love to take things that have all of them in it, right? So the idea is you want to get your 18 amino acid profile in one shot. You don't want to be going out and buying 18 different singled out amino acids. It's just ridiculous. I love taking a fulvic acid. Fulvic acid has all the bound trace minerals, like 75 plus minerals, and it has an 18 amino acid profile to it as well. So you're getting all your amino acids at the same time that you're getting your minerals. I believe everyone on the planet should be on a fulvic acid. Yeah, that's why I recommend it all the time. Okay, so let's move on. A lot of these, again, are drugs. Some of them are not. Tea, that could be green tea, white tea, black tea. Okay, those three are probably the best. This is guar, like guar gum. So what's that doing with hypertension? The effect of guar gum on arterial blood pressure. It appears to be helping because there obviously wouldn't be 1,330,000 results, combining the two. Search terms up there. So we're going to go ahead. So yeah, it talks about how it drops blood pressure as well. So guar gum is a natural compound that you can go out and buy in a supplement. So again, we're just making a list here, and when we're done, we'll be able to go back and look and see that's a natural compound as well. It's a flower, so I'm going to list that as well. Let's see here. Let me move on. Vitamin E's. Grapefruit seed extract, there's one. Now this is one that a lot of people steer away from, anything grapefruit, because it has a compound in it called narginin, which basically interacts with a lot of pharmaceuticals. So a lot of doctors tell people to stay away from it. So if you are on anything that would be implicated in that way, just check with your healthcare provider. But grapefruit seed extract might be a good option. Also, grapeseed extract would be a good option as well. This study, another study of 29 adults with high blood pressure found that taking 300 milligrams of fruit seed extract daily lowered their blood pressure by 5% after 6 weeks. So yeah, it's going to help. Okay. So let's go back this way. That is milk thistle right there. That compound. So I'll just put milk thistle right over here. Milk thistle, what is it doing? Milk thistle. I always like to do this and double check what it's doing, because you never know. Let's see. 9,732 subjects had high blood pressure. So they're combining things together with milk thistle. But again, 1,170,000 results, it's probably going to help you. And milk thistle is great for liver. The liver controls many aspects of health. Because in the liver, it's fatty acid signaling that takes place, and that obviously is going to affect your arterial blood pressure through fatty acid synthesis and fatty acid oxidation as well. So perhaps that is why they have it listed here. But again, just cross-reference that compound with hypertension, i.e. high blood pressure, to find out more information. This is not the setting to go really deep with that. Okay, so olive, like an olive leaf extract, or even extra virgin olive oil would be great for hypertension as well. But we cross-reference olive with hypertension. That one's coming from an olive oil company, so they might be a little bit biased, but obviously it's going to help people. Look at that, 7,340,000 results. Okay, so the Mediterranean diet I always recommend for people. It is literally the easiest diet to follow, and has tons of health benefits attached to it. And within that diet, the use of olive oil, they use it all the time. Just think Italians and, you know, Mediterranean Sea and that type of setting, they use an olive oil on everything. Okay. And so there's a number of different ways you can utilize olive oil. You can cook with it, spread it right over your salads. There's so many different ways you can utilize olive oil, although I don't recommend you cooking high heat with olive oil. Shouldn't be cooking high heat with any oils, you know, medium heat. You don't want to break apart and oxidize the fats contained in the oil, because then they can become carcinogenic, is essentially what takes place. So just be careful about what heat setting you're putting on if you decide to cook with it. I do cook with olive oil. I just use low heat, low to medium heat. I also cook with coconut oil. Those are pretty much the two oils I cook with all the time. So I'm getting some kind of oil into my body every day, whether it's coconut oil or olive oil. And I'd be willing to bet they have coconut down here listed as well. But olive is going to be fantastic. But what about olive leaf extract? What is that going to do? Spelled correctly. Olive leaf extract may help treat hypertension or high blood pressure. Okay, so there's tons of studies on that as well. 1,400,000 results right there. So I'll just take that snippet and plug it in right over here. Say olive oil / olive leaf extract. Okay. So let's go back. Red yeast rice. This is going to be fantastic right here. I don't get to use this very often in protocols, but anything that has to do with blood vessels and heart, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. So let's go ahead and cross-reference that. Red yeast rice, hypertension may promote heart health. One review of 21 studies found that red yeast rice was effective at reducing levels of total LDL cholesterol, right? So one of the reasons why you might have high blood pressure, hypertension, is because, and I've said this before in other videos, a lot of times with the way that we eat in the Western diet, you're creating an atmosphere that is conducive of creating what's called calcium oxalates in the blood. And what happens is these are where like kidney stones, any kind of thing like that, pineal calcification, all these sorts of calcifications that take place in the body are a result from calcium oxalates. And what happens is in the blood, particularly, what they do is they basically slice the inner lining of the blood vessel. So then you have what's called leaky blood vessels. That's like a real medical term. And so what happens is cholesterol comes to the scene and helps plug up the holes from the calcium oxalate crystals, slicing, creating leaky blood vessels. So then cholesterol comes to the scene, and then cholesterol gets right probably by your mainstream doctor. Yo, your cholesterol levels are whack. You absolutely have to have cholesterol. Like, cholesterol is not the enemy. Cholesterol is so good for you. In fact, there are two things needed for life to be created itself from the moment of conception. One of them is basically electricity, and the other one's cholesterol, right? It's like the two things that are absolutely needed. So like the cholesterol helps to coat the it's like the capacitor, kind of, if you kind of put it in those terms, but it coats the cell membrane. If your cell membranes aren't functioning correctly, you have a whole host of issues. So it's not cholesterol that's bad. It's the calcium oxalate, because basically calcium signaling itself. And so vitamin K, vitamin K2 is absolutely fantastic in this situation to help regulate cholesterol and calcium signaling in the body. And what is nattokinase high in? Vitamin K is another reason why it works. And so you can go buy a vitamin K2 supplement. I don't like using vitamin K2 paired with vitamin D, calcium, and all those sorts of things. You're going to take vitamin K, just take vitamin K2 or nattokinase, works fine. In fact, I don't really like using vitamin D at all in my protocols. There's tons of reasons why. Maybe I can get into that at some other point in time. But just know cholesterol is not the bad guy, and red yeast rice will help with high blood pressure as well. Okay, so that is absolutely fantastic. Did we put that on there? Yes, we did. Okay, let me go back here. All right, so what else do we have here? Gosh, we're only into the 200s. So arginine, like I said before, I don't want to get into all the amino acids, but L-arginine and L-ornithine are fantastic for boosting nitric oxide in the body. So I'll go ahead and put that in there. Arginine and citrulline. Citrulline, did I spell that right? Probably not. Make sure I spell that right. Yeah, but citrulline and arginine paired together are absolutely fantastic for nitric oxide production, which helps dilate the blood vessels, basically loosens them up, gets things moving so that you don't have to deal with that hypertension anymore. In fact, let's do it. Citrulline, arginine, and nitric oxide. Okay. And there's tons of studies, 826,000 results on what L-arginine and L-citrulline do for nitric oxide, because that's really the term we want to search for, is nitric oxide and hypertension as well. And so here we have 14,500,000 results, okay, on what a nitric oxide is going to do for hypertension. So yeah, pair those two together will be absolutely fantastic for high blood pressure as well. There's serotonin, that's good for gut-brain connection stuff. Probably not the highest on my list. Right here we have grape. So again, you can eat grapes. Oh, let's make sure I'm spelling that right for everybody. So you can eat grapes in your diet. That would be fantastic. Or you could take a grape seed extract, for example, and maybe I'll just put that right up next to grapefruit seed extract. Grape seed extract. Oh boy, can I spell tonight? Spelling and typing is not my forte. However, resveratrol is an analog that comes from basically grapes. And so if I typed in resveratrol plus hypertension, I would probably find some really good data. 778,000 results on what resveratrol is going to do. So again, I would pair that would pair really nice with the pomegranate. So like a pomegranate resveratrol mix with like grape seed extract and olive leaf extract and red yeast rice and L-arginine and L-citrulline. Throw a little vitamin E in there. I love getting my vitamin E from sea buckthorn oil as well. It's a very rich source of vitamin E. And you'll also get like 400 other biochemical compounds in sea buckthorn. There's so many chemical constituents in sea buckthorn that make your head spin. Go look up sea buckthorn and COVID. You'll see what I mean. It's a fantastic thing. And so I might even put sea buckthorn right here. And another thing that sea buckthorn has in it, and it's a natural compound also called emodin as well. And so sea buckthorn has emodin in it as well. So that's fantastic. We see bilberry here, which is where they get berberine, if I'm not mistaken. So if I typed in, let's go back this way, berberine and hypertension. significantly effective at reducing blood pressure. Oh, I like that, significantly. Yeah, that's nice. So I might even put berberine right down in here as well. Bilberry / berberine. Okay. Boy, we might not have enough time to get through all this. Acetyl-L-carnitine, that's going to be fantastic as well. So that I could take that right over this way and cross-reference that data to figure out what it's doing for hypertension. And there's 267,000 results on, oh, here's one, ameliorating. Oh, I love that word. Every time I see that, it's like, amelioration. That means it's like kaput, done, see you later, out the door, no mas, you're out of here, game over, okay? So that's definitely something you want to put into the protocol. Anytime you see the word ameliorating in a study of what a compound's doing to a very specific disease, you should pay attention. They don't use it very often, but when they do, that word ameliorating, I love it. I just love it. Yeah, so let's move on here. I'm going to try to get through this quick. I'm going to stop cross-referencing everything and just move very quickly from this point. Ornithine would fit right over here to help boost nitric oxide. Glycine would be a good fit as well with something like a dimethylglycine, and that's going to help with homocysteine levels. DMG and high homocysteine levels are associated with cardiovascular events. Okay, so right here, the king of cholesterol compounds. This is one of my absolute favorites to utilize in almost every protocol because it's found in Danchin, but it's literally the king of cholesterol compounds. They call it an HMG coenzyme reductase inhibitor is what it's called. And if you don't know what that is, that's basically how warfarin works, the drug warfarin, which is what they give people for these issues, okay? But Danchin is absolutely fantastic for blood pressure issues. So we're definitely going to put that, we'll put that like right up top here next to pomegranate and resveratrol, because, and I'm going to try to actually prioritize these here. I'll put these on top right there. Nattokinase deserves to be on top. So in like terms of, you know, if you're on like a budget or something like that, what are the absolute most needed, right? I would be putting things like grapeseed extract, because grapeseed extract is extremely anti-inflammatory. Olive leaf, yeah, these two right here. Actually, I would take all of these and put them right on top, probably right underneath all of those. There we go. Now we got some priority taking place. Okay, rhubarb, another great source of emodin. Go cross-reference emodin in any disease, and you'll probably find a study. Bitter orange. Bitter orange, probably wouldn't recommend that with hypertension. It has a compound in there that's been known to do the opposite. So I probably wouldn't put that in a protocol as well. Although I did find a study last week that there's no correlation between blood pressure and taking bitter orange. It has a compound in it called synphrine, I believe it's how you pronounce it, which is banned by the sports industry because it gives them an edge. And so there's a natural compound you can take called bitter orange that has that naturally occurring compound in it.
black currant, they have listed here as well. And so you see the process. I mean, I've got so many other to go here. I'm going to stop right there in that area. There's another one, kudzu, Nigella sativa. That's black seed oil, fantastic. So there's 900 things, and I would be willing to bet out of those 900. I mean, what do we have here so far? We have, well, let's just see, 29 compounds. There's probably a good 50 to 70 natural compounds listed on that link for the therapeutics for hypertension that you can formulate a protocol just based on that information alone, okay, which is absolutely fantastic. But if I were to take you on as a client, I would probably dig way deeper, figure out exactly, like, for example, I'm going to go up here and go, what are the pathways, okay, developing angiotensin activation of ERK super pathway. And so I would actually go look at all the super pathways as well, figure out what the heck's going on here. What is the main gene in there? And I would come back over here, go to this super pathway here. And the idea behind that is like, and I use this analogy a lot, is a, you know, as a person who's suffering from symptoms from a disease, you know, you gotta kind of look at yourself as like you're paddling up river, you know, with no paddles. Like, you're up Schitt's Creek, right? And your ship has holes in it, and you're sinking, and you have to plug up the holes to stop retaining water so you can stay afloat. Well, when we work on these pathways, what we're doing is we're plugging up the holes in your sinking ship by modulating all of the genes and surrounding that particular disorder. Like, for example, that, you know, right here they say this is the #1 gene, and these are the primary 2 super pathways associated with it. So with DNA diligence, we are getting to the root. So we've already got to the root. We know exactly which gene it is. Connecting the dots, this is what we mean, literally connecting the dots. We're looking at all the protein-to-protein interactions that are taking place. And with these string interaction networks, they're called. And again, we're looking at the gene and what it's doing and what makes it tick and how can we modulate that gene back in your favor. And another way to do that is through the protein-to-protein interactions down here as well. So now we have, you know, we could look at the string interaction network, super pathway, and then we could also connect the dots utilizing the protein-to-protein interactions as well. So this is like really advanced stuff that I do for my clients, but and a lot of you might be able to navigate your way through that. Oh, I got something on the chat here. Switch to iPad. Okay. All right, Jack. But you have a lot of information right here that you can begin to incorporate into protocol. Right here it's saying the synthesis of bile acids. Bile acids work on cholesterol, right? Bile acid breaks down fat. That's kind of what its purpose is as well. So that would make sense why a bile acid might assist you as well. So again, why did I say that? Is because they're listing this gene right here, prostaglandin, as the #1 gene. And so you might even employ maybe even like a TUDCA into a protocol as well. So like a TUDCA, it's called TUDCA, TUDCA. Never heard of it? You can buy it as a supplement, just know that. It may be like a bile acid, okay? So then I can take TUDCA based on that information. If they're saying that this is the #1 super pathway associated with that very specific gene, I can take that information because I know what I know already, say, okay, I know that bile acid metabolism is going to be associated with hypertension. And the #1 thing you can do for bile acid is TUDCA. Then I can take that information and cross-reference it with hypertension. and look at what we have here. TUDCA reduces inflammatory signaling and thus may attenuate the endoplasmic reticulum stressors that trigger high blood pressure elevation. You see how that works? This is why taurine is associated with TUDCA, is also beneficial, okay? And so again, why are they saying that is because this gene, it mentioned the endoplasmic reticulum somewhere around here as well. But another thing that you could do before we get off here, we got about 10 minutes left. Another thing you could do with that information in terms of which disease you want to look at, just plug the disease right into the gene cards here, and it might even come up. Other things, other genes that you could modulate in order to help assist that as well. So they're saying bone morphogenic protein here is associated with hypertension, primary pulmonary hypertension, okay, which is more of a lung thing. But that's, again, that's another way you can start poking around and looking at things. There's an angiotensin. So we know that the ACE gene is going to be one of the primary targets, absolutely, based on this type of information. Okay. Regular kidney. So then we can start reading all this stuff. During SARS coronavirus infection is able to recognize and internalize the complex form that's secreted by ACE2. And when COVID first hit years ago, ACE2, everyone was saying ACE2 is the #1 gene for that. And so with the recent events, with the jabby jabs and all that kind of stuff, you're going to see some cardiovascular events, anything associated with blood pressure, blood flow, microcirculation, all those. So anything that has to do with the heart and the pumping of blood is going to be impacted, not only by the virus itself, but also by the untested biological agents that they're using on people, you know. Blood clots is like a big thing right now. Myocardial infarction, all these sorts of issues are coming up. You know, people basically dropping dead out of nowhere. It impacts their heart rhythm, the way the electrical conductance is taking place in the heart. There's actually a gene called ether-a-go-go. It's ether-a-go-go that's associated with the electrical signaling going on in the heart. That's highly targetable. All these things are targetable. Just know what to look for and how to find it. You can begin to start building protocols for yourself. And again, I'm here if you need assistance as well. But another thing you can do is just say, okay, I want to go prostaglandin, say, for example, natural, what are we going to say? Natural prostaglandin inhibitor plus the word herb, for example. And then I could begin to start finding studies. There's 492,000 results on natural prostaglandin inhibitors. In fact, I'll take the word herb off there because there was something up here. This includes vegetables, fruits, legumes, beans, nuts, and seeds. This is the Mediterranean diet, guys. That's like, this is the Mediterranean diet. They're talking about all of these foods that you can consume. Okay. And the Mediterranean diet, they eat like fish like 3-4 times a week. They're eating lean meats like lamb, you know, that kind of stuff. But there are tons of studies that you can find information on prostaglandin 2 or prostaglandin inhibitors. So with prostaglandins, there's a gene called COX-2, and anyone who's in the biohacking realm knows about COX-2 because it's highly inflammatory. And so if I typed in COX-2 here with hypertension, for example, I'll probably find some studies on what that's doing. COX-2 is widely expressed throughout the kidney, and inhibition of this enzyme is contributed to reducing glomerular filtration, salt water retention, and blood pressure elevation. Blood pressure affects COX-2. So I would say like a COX-2 inhibitor might be something good to employ. And I actually have a humongous database that I've listed over the years. Let me see if I have a COX inhibitor somewhere in here. I do. Where's it at? Over the years, I have basically listed COX-2 modulator. So there we have Danchin. We've already talked about that. Resveratrol, curcumin, olive leaf extract, fish oil, so your omega-3 fatty acids. These are all going to be fantastic. There's pomegranate. So everything I've told you about already is already a natural COX-2 antagonist, is what they call them. And those are going to be extremely beneficial for this type of situation as well, because COX-2 is kind of the #1 gene for prostaglandin synthesis. And so that would be extremely beneficial for you in that situation. And so, do I have any other questions? Miss Jackie, did that help you?
Yes, thank you so much. It was wonderful. Could you show the list again so I could copy it? I mean, I just take a picture of it.
Well, what I was going to do is actually finish this out based on the compounds I have listed there. And then if you're on the email list, get on the email list. And what I'll do is I will post this. I'll send this out in an email so that everyone can have access to these compounds if they need them. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, last week
really
I wrote it down. I was like, well, that doesn't really help anybody if I'm just writing it down myself. So I should probably make a list this week. So we'll be doing this every week, an hour out of my time to help people. I'll do this for free. I do one-on-one consultations where I dig like really deep to figure out exactly what's needed. And so if you need further assistance, just let me know. With that, last week we did Lyme disease. It was fantastic. And actually from that information, I actually created a new Lyme disease biohack. Spent a good week, hours and hours and hours every day dissecting the genes and pathways for Lyme disease. And so here it is. Lyme disease, co-infections, all that sort of things is kind of covered with that. And it's a huge problem. And so I know this is going to help a lot of people, and I'm very happy to do that. And so what are these biohacks? They're basically like booking a consultation with me without paying the money. That's basically what it is, because that's what I do for my clients. Okay. So with that being said, I will close this out. I really enjoyed my time with you guys here tonight. Happy New Year to you. 2023 is going to be your year. You just got to get at it. So we're multidimensional beings. That includes not only the physical body, but there's an emotional component, spiritual component as well. And so a man thinketh, so he becomes. My wish for you is to also help to retrain your brain on how you're thinking. No negative self-talk this year. It's like a big thing for me in the transformation that takes place a lot of times with a lot of people that the media brings on. And so quit talking bad about yourself, right? You have royalty in your DNA. Act like it. You know what I mean? And so you are what you eat. Pay attention to that as well. These things like the sleep-wake cycle are really important. It's not just about supplementing, although I do believe that you have to supplement in this day and age, because we are literally being attacked at like every single angle. It's like, you can't get away from it. It's just not possible. We don't live like our grandparents did. There's so many things that we're exposed to in this day and age. if you are not supplementing with something, you're really missing out. And not all supplements are created equal either. So, you know, don't go out to like Walmart and buy stuff off the grocery shelves because it's just fillers. This is going to do nothing for you. You need high quality stuff is the point. And so make sure you are getting access to those sorts of things. And if you need help with that as well, I can help you with that as well. It's something I do for my clients as well. With that being said, it is 7 o'clock. I will get off of here. And I appreciate your time with me tonight. And again, Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.